East of Shelburne Road, in one of the most urban and populated regions of Vermont, stands the University of Vermont's primary field laboratory. Here, teachers, researchers, and the general public convene to contribute to cutting-edge agronomics, apply sustainable horticulture techniques, and educate the next generation of farmers. The plots, programs, and practices on display are operated by the UVM Extension and the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences faculty and staff. Welcome to UVM Horticulture Research and Education Center. My name is Jolie Whitney, and this is Across the Fence. The management of this 97-acre facility of agricultural research excellence in the heart of Chittenden County is the responsibility of Terry Bradshaw, director of the facility and an associate professor of specialty crops. Bradshaw is regarded in Vermont and the Northeast as the authority on tree, fruit, and viticulture. So tell me about this site. You've worked here both as a student and now as a professor. What makes this place special?
What really makes it special, I think, is that it's a place that's so close to campus and yet feels so far away. We showcase both the natural world here, agricultural, environmental aspects, and so there's a lot of different ways that people can touch this place as students, as researchers, as the public, and it's just really unique like that.
And this farm has been through a lot of change. If we were here years ago, maybe we would see crabapple trees and lilacs instead. So as the chair of the Plant and Soil Science Department, it's in the midst of some change itself. Why don't you tell us about that? Yeah, so we decided about a year or so ago as a department that Plant and Soil Science as a name was what the department became in the late 60s. We spent about a year and really chewed on who are we, what do we do, and came up with a name that showcased who we are and not who we want to be, and that was agriculture, landscape, and environment. And so that's the new department name, the Department of Agriculture, Landscape, and Environment. And that seems somewhat academic, but what is the actual change for Vermonters? Yeah, I like to think that we're one of the academic departments. We are an academic department within College of Agriculture and Life Science, but we're also one of the ones that faces outward so much. And even the faculty who don't have a formal extension appointment are out there in the community, whether they're doing work with farmers on, pasture work or pest management. When a Vermonter interfaces with one of our programs, they don't think, am I calling extension, or am I calling plant and soil science, or now am I calling, ALE? You're calling someone at UVM, an expert whose job and whose service is to work with Vermonters. And so I think we really showcase that. And how is the Department of Agriculture, Landscape, and Environment going to keep serving students? A lot of students come to us wanting to have some way to work in an environmental sense, but want to have a concrete way to do it. That word environment, I think, is important because it really is the lens that we take that focuses on the agriculture, the landscape, but within this environmental realm. Jolie, here's someone I'd love to have you meet. Vic Izzo, an agroecologist in our department. Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
For someone unfamiliar with agroecology, can you tell me about what it is?
The basic concept of agroecology is that it combines both the concepts of ecological science with the science of agronomy and agriculture, but it doesn't stop there. The basic concept is that we're also looking to create a way of designing food systems also that are both ecologically healthy and socially just. We're looking at this experiment that we've developed not only with our researchers in the lab, but also with farmers out in the field. The issue that we have with potatoes these days is this thing right here. This is the Colorado potato beetle, and it's kind of like a scourge on potatoes. And we're seeing a lot of resistance cropping up in this pest, so now a lot of growers who spray for this pest, they actually don't see a lot of control. And so what some growers have been doing, they've been actually using a way of delaying their planting so that when the beetle comes out after overwintering, they come out to the field looking for potatoes and there's not potatoes here. And so a lot of growers have been doing that, and they delay it maybe a couple weeks. And then by the time the plants are nice and grown up, they basically don't have to worry about because the size of the potato plant is more tolerant of damage. But a lot of growers had questions about it and saying, like, how late could I plant? What varieties are really good for this delayed planting? And so we had lots of meetings with farmers, and that was the point I was making about before about agroecology. If we were just using knowledge that I've dreamed up in a lab somewhere, we wouldn't get very far, right? Because I'm not a farmer and I don't spend all my time thinking about and working with the land. And so we were able to come up with all these great questions around delayed planting, and we came up with this trial. So what this trial basically does is, if you look down here, basically we have bunch of potatoes planted at different time points throughout the season. We still have 2 more weeks actually to plant. And then we have, over here we have Ollie, who's actually taking data, looking at the number of potato beetle that are on the plants. And we're trying to see if we can dial in this practice so that we can support farmers in implementing this, especially organic farmers who are using less pesticides.
And to kind of build on that, you already touched on working with people outside of the UVM community, but how do you work with other people in Vermont or even outside of the state through UVM ecology?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So what we basically do is, especially with our research, is we create this participatory type of process where we contact farmers. We also contact other community members that aren't necessarily so consumers too, that are interested in perhaps eating potatoes that are organic. And we bring them all to the table and we ask them, what are the issues that you're dealing with and how can we support you? And that basically, all of the research questions that we developed have come through that process.
Tell me how many research projects you guys will have going at any given time.
Yeah, most years we have about 18 to 22, somewhere around 20 different projects. This year we have 7 or 8, I don't remember exactly, but 7 or 8 different faculty members from a couple different departments. Sometimes we have folks from different colleges that are doing some work with colleges within UVM. And so we're able to focus both on teaching and research and actually integrate the two together as much as possible. So we have students who are gaining credit this summer, academic credit, but they're working on research projects and vice versa. So there's a lot of interplay.
And are all the plots at this farm for academic use, or is there any opportunity for the public to get involved?
Yeah, we have a number of different public-facing groups that we work with, affiliates. The Friends of the Horticulture Farm, they're truly dear friends of this facility. They started about 30 years ago, and they provide some workshops and other public programming.
I'm Annie White. I teach in the landscape design program at UVM, and one of the courses I teach is permaculture, and we're here in our newly establishing perennial and permaculture educational garden. So permaculture it's really a design philosophy. It's made up of a set of principles and techniques for designing and maintaining sustainable landscapes, and landscapes that are both agriculturally productive, so they produce food for us, and also support human living environments and human communities as well.
What does it mean to study a landscape?
So landscapes really are everything outside of a building. So we can study landscapes ranging all the way from the forest on the side of Mount Mansfield to an urban backyard in Burlington and everything in between. So landscape designers and landscape architects, we are really working on a lot of different challenges, and we're preparing students in our program to not just design beautiful gardens and backyard landscapes, but also to tackle some of the environmental challenges. They may be designing pollinator habitat for a farm, or they may be developing a stormwater management plan for a whole watershed. So a lot of work at a lot of different scales.
And speaking of scales, let's move this maybe to a household. If somebody's interested in implementing some permaculture techniques in their own home, what are some things they can look to do?
Right, so one of the things that we're really showcasing out here in this educational garden is how you can use perennial edible plants in the landscape. Many Vermonters have home vegetable gardens where you may grow tomatoes and peppers and lettuce, and those are all annual plants, so they're only going to survive one season, and then they'll disappear and you have to replant the next year. Everything out here is perennial, so it will come back year after year. We have vegetables and herbs and nuts and berries and fruits, and this garden is very young right now. We're still planting it, but in 10 years we'll still have all of these edible plants. And homeowners, even if you don't have a home vegetable garden, you still can think about adding more edible shrubs and edible trees into the landscape, and they'll be great for you and also great for supporting wildlife at the same time. Help yourself.
Oh, thank you. The focus is still really on hands-on learning for students here at the farm to get their hands dirty, is that right?
Absolutely. We're only 4 miles from campus, and we have multiple different opportunities for students to get involved. We also have on-farm experiential classes. So in the summer right now we have 4 students who are involved in a farm operations class, and they're working with farmer training students, which are non-credit students, literally with their hands in the soil growing crops. When I think about the land grant mission, I think about the teaching, the research, and the outreach. that make up that component of it. A lot of times people don't really realize that. I mean, I talk to people out in the public and I mention land grant and they don't understand what that is, but they do know what extension is. I work with apple and grape growers. The work that I do evaluating rootstocks of apple trees is of little importance to the greater world, but it's of critical importance to growers who are going to plant an orchard that's going to sit in the ground for 20 years, and if they put the wrong rootstock on, it may not be as productive as it could be. And then I'll go to the growers at our grower meeting and present that so when they're planting their next orchard, they can do that with some real research in mind. It truly showcases the land grant mission.
Tell me about your favorite research project you've done here so far.
Well, worked on quite a few of them, but for about 15 years, from 2005 to late 2010s, we studied organic apple production. That's where I got my master's and PhD degrees. And it was actually on this plot right here. When we wrapped up that research, we turned it over to another trial, which is looking at Kernza, which is, you ever heard of Kernza?
I haven't, no. Is that what's here now?
That's right here. So it's a perennial grass. And, well, why don't I introduce you to the person who can explain it, Dr. Eric von Wetberg.
Nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to talk with you.
So tell me about Kernza.
So Kernza is a form of intermediate wheatgrass. It's a relative of wheat. Wheat, like many of our grain crops, is an annual crop. It goes from seed to seed within a year, in a couple of months. Kernza is a very deep-rooted perennial, so it has roots. We're not sure how deep they are in this soil. Later this summer, we'll be driving a several meter-long core into the ground to figure out how deep the roots go.
So we're talking meters here.
We're talking,
wow.
We're talking 8, 10 feet, 12 feet. Particularly in a sandy soil like we have here. It can go very deep. That allows it to live for several years. So a farmer growing this as a crop gets a harvest every year after planting it once. Those deep roots are pumping carbon deep into the soil where it's more likely to stay, to be part of a solution to climate change, to be part of a solution to erosion, to phosphorus problems.
And you have a number of students working on this project. What do you hope they take away from it?
Well, I hope more than anything they take away an enthusiasm for Vermont, an enthusiasm for agriculture here, and an enthusiasm for trying out new things. Part of our role is to take risks that a farmer might not want to take. This is about agronomy. Can we grow this crop? It is also about soil science. These deep roots are part of what makes soil different than dirt. It's the biological interaction of plants with the substrate to build a living soil. And we hope this can build a particularly deep, rich soil.
We spent a lot of today talking about change, and now we're seeing some change in action here. Can you tell me what's going on?
Yeah, this is the first step of a master plan we've been working on for 10 or 12 years. It's going to be a multi-use pavilion, classrooms, research space, and our farm stand will be taught in here. We recently received some federal funding and a generous donation to help get this started. And this is just the first part of what's going to be a redevelopment of the facilities here at the Hort Center.
That takes care of our Across the Fence for today. Thank you to all of our guests here at the Hort Farm, and of course our host, Terry Bradshaw. Thank you for watching. My name's Jolie Whitney. Have a good one.